Henry returns to Hong Kong after serving several years in the U.S. military. Ready for a fresh start, he decides to become a teacher at his former school, Tak Chi Secondary. At first, the principal hesitates, pointing out Henry's lack of teaching experience. But after seeing a strong recommendation letter from a high-ranking official, he agrees to hire Henry. Before leaving, Henry learns he's assigned to the school's most troublesome class. On his first day, Henry walks into his classroom, only to find total chaos. Some students sleeping, others playing video games, a few singing loudly, and some even cooking ramen on a portable stove. The students completely ignore him, continuing their activities without pause. Henry tries to gain their attention, but it's useless. Realizing this, he calmly moves around the room, commenting humorously on their actions instead. He tells the students cooking ramen to watch their sodium intake. Approaching a student named Zufa who's playing the ukulele, Henry offers him musical advice. To another absorbed in gaming, he warns about the dangers of prolonged exposure to radiation from screens. Slowly, his friendly approach begins catching their attention. He finally introduces himself and writes his name and phone number on the board. The class laughs, teasing him about his messy handwriting. A student even calls him on his phone, jokingly asking him to leave. The class quickly loses interest again. Determined to get their full attention, Henry cleverly uses a rubber band and chalk to trigger the room's fire sprinkler system. Students scramble to avoid getting soaked, finally giving him their undivided attention. Henry smiles and officially welcomes them to his class. Afterward, 5 of the class's lowest performing students gather secretly in the sports supply room to smoke. Jack, their leader, secretly admires a top-grade student from another class. His friends discover him looking at her picture and tease him relentlessly. Their conversation is interrupted when the wealthy and arrogant basketball team members arrive, mocking Jack and his friends for being poor. Later during basketball practice, Jack and his friends watch nearby. Jack intentionally drops a bottle onto the court, causing the team's captain to fall. They burst out laughing but quickly face punishment from the school's strict English teacher, Miss Leon. To escape detention, they prank her, distracting her enough to flee unnoticed. Meanwhile, the principal is stressed because the education board plans to cut the school's funding by 20%. Board officials soon arrive to inspect the school's conditions and ensure funds are being spent properly. At the same moment, Henry enters his classroom and narrowly avoids a bucket of water prank set by his students, surprising them with his swift reflexes. Calmly, Henry asks Jack to hand over his cigarettes. Curious, Jack complies. Henry then asks Zufa to name 3 harmful ingredients in cigarettes. When Zufa answers correctly, he's allowed to skip class for the day, exciting the other students who demand the same privilege. Instead, Henry hands everyone a cigarette, challenging them to examine its contents closely. Knowing that simply lecturing won't make an impact, he creatively explains the harmful effects cigarettes have, emphasizing the damage tar causes to their lungs. For the first time, his students are genuinely engaged and interested in learning. When class ends, Henry asks them to return the cigarettes, which they reluctantly do. During lunch in the cafeteria, tension rises when the basketball captain deliberately trips Jack's friend Bruce, triggering an argument that escalates into an all-out fight. Food and tables are thrown as the cafeteria descends into chaos. Later, Henry learns that 5 students from his class, including Jack, are temporarily suspended for initiating the fight. Walking through the hallway, Henry spots Jack fighting once again and immediately intervenes to stop them. When Henry asks Jack to calm down, Jack angrily points out that the school treats students unfairly, letting rich kids go unpunished. After school that day, Henry takes time to review the files of the 5 suspended students, aiming to understand their backgrounds better. The first student is Zufa. He's the son of a Pakistani immigrant and faces constant discrimination because of his ethnicity. The local police often unfairly accuse him of theft. Despite his difficult life, Zufa dreams of becoming a musician someday. The second student is a girl named Danan. Her father has been disappointed in her since birth, as he always wanted a son instead. Danan has spent her entire life trying desperately to earn her father's respect. She even cut her hair short and played with toy cars to behave more like a boy. Still, her father ignores her, showering all his affection on her younger brother. Then there are 2 brothers, Bruce and Chris. Their mother ran off with another man when they were very young, leaving their father heartbroken and dependent on alcohol. With no emotional support, Bruce immersed himself in video games to escape reality, while Chris took responsibility by working in a grocery store to support the family. Finally, Henry discovers that there's no record available about Jack's family background. Later, Jack is seen working as a waiter at a restaurant. There, he encounters an MMA bettor named Jianying, who arrives with some business partners. Jack secretly tries to steal Jianying's expensive lighter, but gets caught. Jianying's men beat Jack and check his ID. Realizing Jack is still a student, Jianying surprisingly hands him some money and offers him a job delivering food for them. Meanwhile, Henry visits Zufa's home and sees Zufa being chased by his father and others after he stole a ticket. At first, Henry defends Zufa, but upon learning the truth, he sides with Zufa's father. Afterwards, Henry takes Zufa to a bridge to talk. To encourage Zufa to pursue his dream of becoming a musician, Henry boldly joins a street band and starts singing. Inspired by Henry's bravery, Zufa overcomes his fear and begins singing alongside him, performing publicly for the first time since being bullied years ago. At Bruce and Chris's home, their father returns late, as usual, demanding they bring him beer from the store. When the brothers refuse, he angrily kicks them out of the house. The next day, Henry meets with their father and persuades him to enter rehab for the sake of his sons. At Danann's house, her father gives her makeup and demands she behave more like a girl. Danann, angry and hurt, puts the makeup on her younger brother instead and sneaks out with her father's car keys. She's about to drive away without a license when Henry arrives just in time to stop her. He reminds her driving illegally is dangerous and instead suggests another option. Henry takes Danann to a go-kart racing track and secretly invites her father to join. Danann and her father race fiercely against each other, eventually going off track. Suddenly, Danann's go-kart nearly gets hit by a vehicle, but she narrowly escapes. Unaware she is safe, her father breaks down in tears, devastated at the thought of losing her. Realizing her father genuinely loves her, Danann embraces him, finally understanding his feelings. The following day at school, Bruce, Chris, and a group of students visit a rehabilitation center to interview someone recovering from alcoholism. To their surprise, the person they meet is their own father. When asked why he began drinking, their father reveals he turned to alcohol after his beloved wife left him at his lowest point. Consumed by his own pain, he neglected his responsibility towards his sons. Though he doesn't reveal to the group that Bruce and Chris are his sons, he sincerely apologizes for his mistakes, leaving the two brothers deeply moved. Elsewhere, Jack starts working for Jianying. Jianying offers Jack a large sum of money to secretly drug a fighter's drink before the upcoming MMA fight. Although hesitant and uneasy about it, Jack feels he has no choice but to accept the offer. On the day of the match, Jianying officially sponsors one of the fighters but secretly bets on him to lose. Jack secretly slips drugs into the fighter's drink, but gets caught red-handed. Before he can explain that Jianying ordered him to do it, he's beaten up badly and locked inside a locker. Not long after, Henry arrives, looking for Jack. He asks the fighters if they've seen his student, but they rudely tell him to leave. Suddenly, Jack screams for help from inside the locker, alerting Henry to what's going on. Realizing Jack is trapped, Henry immediately leaps into action. He swiftly defeats Jianying's men with ease until the professional fighters jump in. Even though things become more intense, Henry expertly dodges their punches and kicks, eventually knocking out their strongest fighter, who was set to compete in just a few minutes. In the next scene, Henry and Jack are at the hospital getting treated for their injuries. Jack tries to tell everyone the truth about Jianying, but he's forced to keep quiet. Soon, the story spreads to the media, and Henry gains instant fame as the teacher who bravely fought professional fighters to protect his student. At school, Henry becomes a local hero. Students who once ignored him now stand respectfully as he walks into class. In a quick flashback, it's revealed that Henry himself was quite a troublemaker back when he was a student. He once threw water balloons at a kid who was performing piano during a school event, and later broke the same boy's hand in a fight. As punishment, Henry was suspended from school and had to move to the United States. After the incident, Henry's students become more focused and start studying diligently for their upcoming college entrance exam. Everyone is doing well, except Bruce, who is secretly struggling with a pill addiction. While his brother Chris uses video games to cope with family stress, Bruce turns to drugs and becomes severely depressed. Eventually, overwhelmed by stress and addiction, Bruce jumps off the balcony at home and falls into a coma. Tragically, the media twists the news, blaming Henry and the school for Bruce's condition. The education board investigates Henry and ultimately revokes his teaching license. When Henry packs up and leaves the school, his students run after him, begging him not to go. Although heartbroken by his absence, the students promise themselves they'll do well on their exams to make Henry proud and clear his name. Determined more than ever, the students study harder, pushing themselves to their limits. On the morning of the exam, Jack and his classmates receive a message from Henry, telling them to meet at school an hour before the test. But upon arriving, they realize it was a trap set by Jianying, aiming to sabotage their chances by locking them inside, so they would miss the exam just to hurt Henry. Shortly after, Henry arrives at school and quickly understands what's going on. He helps his students escape, bravely confronting Jianying's gang to protect them. As the students hurry towards the examination hall, Henry and Jianying engage in a fierce one-on-one battle. During the fight, Jianying reveals he was the boy whose arm Henry broke years ago, destroying his dreams of becoming a pianist. Ever since then, Jianying hasn't touched a piano, blaming Henry for his ruined life. Henry tries to reason with him, but Jianying keeps attacking. Eventually, after an intense struggle over a knife, Henry gains the upper hand. Instead of harming Jianying, Henry chooses to spare him, sincerely apologizing for his past mistakes before walking away. The students reach the examination hall just in time, successfully completing their tests. A few weeks later, the results come out, and they all pass with outstanding scores. Bruce recovers well and promises to retake the exam the following year. Meanwhile, Jianying finally decides to return to the piano, determined to regain his skills. Thanks to the students' excellent performance, the principal happily announces the school received a 20% funding bonus from the education board. Henry is welcomed back as a teacher, ready to inspire a new batch of students, using his signature fire sprinkler trick once again.